When Wang Lin set foot on the summit of the mountain, he thought he had come for a treasure. What awaited him instead was an ancient secret, a broken bloodline and a curse that had devoured an entire clan. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, please consider supporting us through the donation. It really motivates us to keep creating. Wang Lin's gaze was calm as it rested upon the mountain before him. The mountain rose so high that its peak vanished into the heavens far beyond sight. It was as though another universe lay hidden beyond its summit. From the clouds swirling around the peak, bursts of silver thunder twisted and coiled like dragons. Deep within those clouds came the muffled echoes of roaring thunder rumbling endlessly through the sky. As Wang Lin observed the mountain, he could sense an ancient aura emanating from it, solemn, vast, and immeasurably old. This was the soul of the mountain itself. The woman named Gi also stared at the mountain, but a mysterious light flickered within her eyes. Her body trembled slightly as she instinctively turned to look at Li Yuan. At that moment his back was facing her, and that solitary figure filled her vision completely. When her gaze shifted from the mountain to Li Yuan, that faint sense of familiarity suddenly surged back, violent and overwhelming. The woman named Ge's expression filled with fear. This fear was several times stronger than the fear she had felt when facing Wang Lin. She remembered. At that very moment, Li Yuan slowly turned around. His gaze fell upon her with quiet meaning, causing the words at the edge of her lips to freeze before they could be spoken. She lowered her head. After a long moment of silence, she raised it again. Her eyes had become calm as though she had finally understood everything. Li Yuan turned his gaze back toward the mountain and spoke slowly. This mountain has no name. Within it lie countless restrictions. The Thunder Celestial Realm has opened innumerable times throughout history. Yet, as you can see, very few have ever managed to break the restrictions hidden inside. The woman named Gi silently pondered his words as she calmly studied the mountain once more. Strangely enough, she felt both extremely familiar with it and completely unfamiliar at the same time. Wang Lin spoke calmly. "Let's go." Li Yuan nodded and stepped forward, taking the lead. He walked closer and closer toward the mountain. At its base, the thunder roared with terrifying intensity. Brilliant flashes of lightning descended one after another, illuminating the surroundings with blinding light. Li Yuan's steps were steady as he stepped onto the mountain. There was no natural path here. Yet because the Thunder Celestial Realm had opened countless times throughout the ages, a path had gradually formed, one carved by generations of cultivators who had come to challenge the restrictions within. The woman named Gi followed behind Li Yuan, walking slightly to the side. She bit her lip as she stared at his back. I should have realized long ago. That figure, compared with that thing in the family, they are so similar. So it was never just a legend. A bitter expression appeared on her face. Now she understood why Li Yuan had appeared within their family in the first place. He had approached them deliberately. She also realized that if Li Yuan had not used some special method, the family would never have allowed her to enter the Thunder Celestial Realm. The complex gaze of the family ancestor on the day they departed suddenly resurfaced in her mind. At the time, she had found that gaze strange. Now she finally understood. The ancestor had known everything. Otherwise, why would no member of the Ji family have entered the Thunder Celestial Realm for tens of thousands of years? To the Ji family, it was as though the Thunder Celestial Realm were a forbidden land. And all of that had changed the moment Li Yuan appeared. She had become the first member of the family in tens of thousands of years to enter the Thunder Celestial Realm. And the only person accompanying her was Li Yuan. So the ancestor sent me here as atonement. That must be why he gave me the family's inheritance treasure. The woman named Gi revealed a sorrowful smile, and Li Yuan promised to bring back my sliver of soul, most likely because the sacrifice would fail if my soul were incomplete. At that moment, her mind became perfectly clear, as if she had finally seen through everything. Her constantly shifting expressions naturally did not escape Wang Lin's notice. Ever since she had laid eyes upon this mountain, her emotions had been changing again and again. Wang Lin's gaze moved away from her and settled upon Li Yuan's back. Although his expression remained calm, a faint sneer curled at the corner of his lips. Wang Lin had already concluded that Li Yuan had noticed him long ago. Even the restriction earlier was most likely laid out deliberately to lure him into revealing himself. In fact, it was entirely possible that everything that had happened up until now had been part of Li Yuan's scheme, though there were still some details Wang Lin had yet to understand. That did not prevent him from seeing through the overall situation. A trace of killing intent flashed through his eyes. Wang Lin never showed mercy to those who plotted against him. However, at this moment he had other plans. The killing intent that seeped from his body was like the edge of a sharpened sword. Just then, Li Yuan suddenly stopped walking. Without turning around, he said calmly, "Brother Xu, I am not as despicable as you imagine. Meeting you was indeed part of my plan, but there was also an element of fate involved." Without realizing it, the way he addressed Wang Lin had subtly changed. Wang Lin's eyes grew cold. "What exactly lies at the peak of this mountain?" he asked calmly. Li Yuan remained silent for a moment. He gazed toward the endless summit that stretched deep into the clouds. A trace of melancholy flickered across his eyes. "My master is there," he said softly. Wang Lin frowned slightly. At that moment, Li Yuan turned around and looked directly at him. Now that they had entered the mountain, Li Yuan seemed like a completely different person from before. "Brother Xu," he said gently, "with your cultivation level, you will not be able to leave this mountain without my permission." Wang Lin replied calmly, "The 18 Plum restriction. I know a thing or two about it." The moment those words were spoken, Li Yuan was genuinely startled. This reaction was not feigned. He stared at Wang Lin as though seeing him for the first time. Frowning slightly, Li Yuan said, "Although not many people know about the 18 Plum restriction, it is not completely unknown. It isn't surprising that Brother Xu would recognize it." Wang Lin looked at him and smiled faintly. "So what you used really was the 18 Plum restriction." His shadow flickered. The celestial guard suddenly flew out. The moment it appeared, it threw a punch directly into the empty space behind them. As the punch landed, the entire mountain peak trembled violently. A vortex instantly appeared in mid-air. That vortex led directly outside. After delivering the punch, the celestial guard calmly withdrew its fist and returned to Wang Lin's shadow. Wang Lin himself had not moved at all. He simply looked at Li Yuan calmly and said slowly, "This place cannot trap me." Li Yuan's expression immediately darkened. He stared at Wang Lin for a long time before speaking again. "It seems I have underestimated you. However, even if you possess this puppet..." Before he could finish speaking, Wang Lin let out a cold sneer. He raised his right hand and pointed forward. The final strand of Ling Tianho's sword energy emerged. After his cultivation had advanced, Wang Lin's control over that strand of sword energy had become far more refined. The instant it appeared, a piercing whistle echoed across heaven and earth. The entire mountain peak trembled violently. The sword energy moved with unimaginable speed. In the blink of an eye, it stopped directly in front of Li Yuan's forehead. It was as though an invisible sword were pressing against the center of his brow. Wang Lin's voice was cold. "And what if I add this?" Li Yuan slowly closed his eyes. A moment later, he opened them again. After a long silence, he said slowly, "It seems that Brother Xu believes the reward I offered is not sufficient. Very well. Tell me clearly what it is that you want." A strange light flickered within Wang Lin's eyes. This Li Yuan was extremely intelligent. He had immediately understood Wang Lin's true intention. The reason Wang Lin had revealed Ling Tianhu's sword energy was precisely to force Li Yuan to say those words. "I want your 18 Plum restriction method." Wang Lin's voice was quiet, yet the meaning behind those words struck like thunder. He knew that the 18 Plum restriction had been extremely famous in ancient times, but it had always been guarded with absolute secrecy. Outsiders could never learn it. Even among disciples, access depended strictly on rank. Most could only learn up to the 9 Plum restriction. Only the master himself could cultivate the complete 18 Plum restriction. But today this restriction technique had long been lost. Countless masters of restriction techniques regarded its disappearance as a profound regret. The first time Wang Lin had heard of the 18 Plum restriction was within the cave in the demon spirit land. When Li Yuan casually waved his hand and 18 restrictions appeared at once, suspicion had already begun to form in Wang Lin's mind. What strengthened that suspicion even further was the jade slip containing the hidden restriction. The moment he examined it, 18 statues had appeared before him. Those statues were completely different from plum blossoms. At the time, Wang Lin had been puzzled, but after careful contemplation, he had begun to see certain clues hidden within. Although his voice sounded calm now, in truth, he was merely testing Li Yuan. If Li Yuan refused, Wang Lin would immediately lose interest. Whether to attack or simply leave would require nothing more than a single thought. That was the true reason Wang Lin had followed them all the way here. If it had merely been for the faint possibility of obtaining the origin tool, Wang Lin would never have bothered to trail them for so long. However, Li Yuan was far too mysterious. Wang Lin was not even certain that this man was truly only at the peak of the late ascendant stage. That uncertainty was precisely why Wang Lin had refrained from acting along the way. Only now, after they had arrived at the destination, did Wang Lin finally reveal his hand. Li Yuan pondered for a moment before a faint smile appeared on his face. Only the 18 Plum restriction. If Brother Shu desires it, I would be more than happy to oblige. He slapped his storage bag and retrieved a jade slip. Placing it briefly between his eyebrows, he transmitted information into it before tossing it toward Wang Lin. That jade contains the 13 Plum restriction. Once we enter the mountain, I will naturally give you the remaining 5. Wang Lin caught the jade slip and scanned it with his divine sense. Although his expression remained indifferent, his heart began to pound violently. Inside the jade slip, there were no incantations. Instead, there were 13 massive statues accompanied by 13 plum blossoms. From beginning to end, the woman named Ji remained silent, as though none of this concerned her in the slightest. She simply stared at the mountain before her, her gaze distant, lost in thought. Brother Shu Li Yuan said, as he turned toward the mountain and began walking again. The 18 Plum restriction is not the only restriction I know. Have you ever heard of the 4 great restrictions? He spoke casually as he climbed upward, seemingly unconcerned in the least that Wang Lin might take the jade and leave. After putting away the jade slip, Wang Lin calmly followed. Rumor has it, Li Yuan continued that when the world was first born, the laws of heaven and earth also came into existence. A long time ago, those laws split into 9 parts. One of those parts became what we call restrictions or formations. Different names, but ultimately the same thing. For a very long time, restrictions were classified into 4 grades: Heaven, Earth, Mystery, and Yellow. Li Yuan walked steadily up the mountain without turning around. The woman named Gi followed behind him, still looking dazed. But above those 4 grades, Li Yuan continued slowly, there exists another level, the Void grade. And within the Void grade lie the 4 great restrictions. This mountain contains one of them, the Annihilation restriction. No one has ever reached the peak of this mountain, because the peak has no end. His words drifted calmly into Wang Lin's ears. Brother Shu must be wondering how I know all of this. Li Yuan stepped over a protruding rock. His right hand formed a seal before casually pressing down into the empty air. The moment his hand descended, the entire mountain flashed with blinding light. A violent rumble shook the heavens. The mountain suddenly shrunk to half its size. Although the peak was still invisible, it was now clearly far closer than before. So what happens if someone simply walks toward the peak? Li Yuan said as he turned around, a faint smile playing on his lips. Without knowing how to break the restriction, one could search this entire mountain and never even reach the clouds. Brother Shu, do you have any questions? Wang Lin looked at him calmly. You're very noisy. Li Yuan frowned slightly, then broke into laughter before turning around again and continuing forward. This time, however, he remained silent. His eyes carried a deep sense of nostalgia, as though every plant and stone upon this mountain was intimately familiar to him. When they reached the midpoint of the mountain, Li Yuan once again formed a series of complicated seals with his hand before pressing them into the void. The mountain trembled violently once more and shrank again. Wang Lin's pupils contracted. Now he could vaguely make out the distant peak. Just as Li Yuan completed his seals, a faint voice suddenly entered Wang Lin's ears. "Senior, save me. This man is insane." The voice belonged to Ge Hong. But before she could finish speaking, Li Yuan cast a cold glance toward her. Her words abruptly stopped. Ge Hong Li Yuan said coldly, "If you wish to speak, then speak openly. There is no need to hide behind divine sense." His gaze was icy and laced with faint mockery. Ever since entering the mountain, he seemed like a completely different person. Ge Hong hesitated before gritting her teeth. She took several steps backward until she stood beside Wang Lin. Only then did she appear to feel somewhat safe. "I know who you are," she said through clenched teeth. "And you did not appear in my family by accident. You came with a purpose." Li Yuan smiled faintly and nodded. "That's correct." Ge Hong's face turned pale. "Why me? The one who took your master's belongings wasn't me. It was the Ji ancestors." Li Yuan's eyes grew cold. "That is because he said calmly, 'You are the direct descendant of that thief. In the entire Ji family, you are his only direct bloodline.'" Fear flooded Ge Hong's eyes. In desperation, she took out her storage bag. "I'll give you everything. Inside are the scroll, the iron sword, and the compass. Those are the only 3 items. I'll give them all to you. Please, just let me go." Li Yuan accepted the storage bag. A complex expression passed through his eyes. With a gentle tap, 3 objects floated out. First came the iron sword, then a simple compass, and finally an ancient scroll. Li Yuan slowly opened the scroll. As he gazed at the painting inside, melancholy filled his eyes. The painting depicted a towering mountain, most of it hidden within the clouds. At the base of the mountain, a flying sword soared toward the heavens. A man stood upon the hilt of the sword, though his form appeared only as a vague silhouette. Another figure stood upon the tip of the sword. The back of that figure looked strikingly similar to Li Yuan. Wang Lin's eyes flashed with light. A bold speculation suddenly formed within his mind. This painting was clearly from before the celestial realm collapsed. If that were true, could Li Yuan actually be a celestial? Wang Lin inhaled sharply. Yet at the same time, he instinctively felt that something about this guess did not quite add up. Li Yuan sighed softly before rolling up the scroll. He stored the scroll, the sword, and the compass. Then he looked at Ge Hong and said calmly, "Let's go." He turned and continued toward the mountain peak. Ge Hong's face remained deathly pale. After a moment of hesitation, she gritted her teeth. Instead of following him upward, she suddenly turned and fled down the mountain at full speed. Wang Lin's expression did not change. He continued walking forward. As for Li Yuan, he paid no attention to Ge Hong's escape. Without turning back or slowing his steps, he continued climbing. "Brother Shu must have many questions," Li Yuan said quietly. "But please, do not ask yet. When we reach the peak, I will tell you everything. Even I. Remember it only vaguely." His voice carried a strange tone. Wang Lin said nothing. He simply followed Li Yuan toward the summit. Along the way, every restriction was broken, with a casual wave of Li Yuan's hand. Each technique he used became increasingly complex, and with every restriction broken, the mountain shrunk further. Each time it shrank, the peak drew closer, until finally, the summit came into view. At the very top of the mountain stood a massive stone statue. The statue depicted a middle-aged man. Beside him floated a flying sword. At the very tip of the sword stood another figure. The moment Li Yuan saw the statue, excitement surged within him. Without realizing it, he sped up. In a flash, he arrived before the towering 100-foot-tall statue. Standing beneath it, his eyes filled with sorrow. Wang Lin soon reached the summit as well. As he looked at the statue, he felt a natural and majestic aura emanating from it. At the same time, a faint sense of restriction surrounded it. The statue's right hand formed a seal. At first glance, the seal appeared simple, but upon closer inspection, it was shockingly complex. The moment Wang Lin's gaze settled upon it, his mind trembled violently. It felt as though some mysterious force was trying to pull his soul away. Countless sword whistles echoed in his ears. His vision blurred. When he looked again, he saw a breathtaking scene. Countless celestials wielding divine weapons surged into the sky. They were battling the heavens themselves. Lightning flashed around their bodies. With every wave of their hands, terrifying bolts of thunder blasted upward. But the sky above them was completely empty. There were no enemies. And yet, celestials exploded one after another. The bizarre scene shook Wang Lin to his core. At that moment, one celestial suddenly flew forward from the crowd. His sword was wrapped in purple thunder. Standing upon the hilt of the sword was the very same man depicted in the stone statue. At the sword's tip stood another figure, but this figure looked nothing like Li Yuan. The sword shot forward. All the surrounding celestials scattered. The sword released an aura so terrifying that merely glancing at it made Wang Lin's soul tremble. It shot directly into the heavens. At that moment, within the silent illusion, Wang Lin faintly heard a quiet voice. "As long as I live, the soul shall never perish." The moment the voice faded, the man standing upon the sword's hilt collapsed. Only the servant remained still standing at the sword's tip. He stared at the now empty hilt. An overwhelming sorrow filled his eyes. To him, the master standing upon that hilt had been his sky. Now that sky had collapsed, there was no one left upon the hilt. From that moment onward, only he and the sword remained in this world. Above the hilt, there was nothing but emptiness. He slowly raised his head and looked toward the heavens. His eyes carried the will to die. Standing upon the sword's tip, he followed the path of his master, charging into the sky. When the master dies, the servant follows. The figure standing at the tip of the sword shot upward into the sky. A gentle wind brushed past him, causing his body to tremble slightly. Then, without warning, his strength seemed to vanish. His body collapsed and fell from the sky. The sword let out what seemed like a cry of sorrow as it descended from the heavens. Plunging deeply into the summit of the mountain, a ripple spread through the air. Then a massive portion of the mountain cracked and broke away. Fragments of shattered rock gathered around the sword. In the blink of an eye, the sword transformed into a stone statue. Beside it, another statue slowly formed the figure of its master. Meanwhile, the shattered stones continued to gather and assemble themselves. Gradually, the figure of the servant standing at the tip of the sword also began to take shape. At first, the statues were rough and crude, but as time passed, they grew increasingly refined and distinct, as though a faint spirit were gradually awakening within them. The seal held by the stone statue had already occupied Wang Lin's mind. It shone with a brilliant light inside his eyes. For a moment, it felt as though the statue itself had come alive, its stone eyes beginning to reveal a trace of intelligence. A voice echoed faintly within Wang Lin's consciousness. "Future descendants who carry my bloodline, release the restriction and awaken me. If your strength is insufficient, then remember this and pass it on to future generations." The moment those words appeared, the imprint within Wang Lin's mind attempted to take root, trying to brand itself deep within his soul. Fortunately, the intense burning pain raging throughout Wang Lin's body stimulated his consciousness and jolted him awake. He staggered backward several steps and quickly closed his eyes to regain clarity. At the same time, the violent burning force within his body surged through every inch of him, dispersing the imprint attempting to settle in his mind. When Wang Lin opened his eyes again, they were filled with shock. He inhaled deeply and retreated several more steps. This stone statue was simply too strange. Yet after 1,000 years of cultivation, Wang Lin was able to make a few guesses. The seal held by the statue was clearly a celestial spell, a form of inheritance. However, what it transmitted was not power. It was a slave imprint meant to be passed down through generations. Even so, no spell in this world could escape the erosion of time. This celestial spell might once have been unimaginably powerful, but as the ages passed, it had grown weaker and weaker. Even so, if Wang Lin's body had not been engulfed by that burning force, it would have been extremely difficult for him to break free from its influence. However, what puzzled Wang Lin was that the imprint's collapse had not truly been caused by the burning power. Although that power had accelerated its destruction, the true source of the collapse had come from within the imprint itself. Li Wen gazed quietly at the stone statue. "You felt it, didn't you?" he said softly. "Brother Shu can rest assured. That imprint will not enslave you, it will dissipate, because it has already imprinted upon someone. My ancestors arrived here long ago. Using their own methods, they broke through the restrictions and reached the summit of this mountain. From that moment onward, they became slaves to this celestial, and every generation of my ancestors' descendants inherited that same slave imprint." Li Yuan stared at the statue as he spoke. It was as if he were muttering to himself, yet also addressing Wang Lin at the same time. "The statue of this celestial cannot be destroyed." He raised his right hand and pressed it down upon the statue. Celestial spiritual energy surged violently from his body. Cracks instantly spread across the stone statue like writhing centipedes crawling over every inch of its surface. In the next moment, the statue shattered into countless fragments. Yet the instant it collapsed, the shattered pieces trembled and reassembled themselves. In the blink of an eye, the statue returned to its original form completely intact. "Brother Shu, you saw it yourself." Li Yuan turned around to face Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression grew serious as he nodded. Li Yuan sighed bitterly. "Long ago, my Li family was renowned throughout the All-Heaven star system as one of the 6 ancient cultivation clans. Our clan cultivated the Tao of restrictions. In every generation, there were individuals who broke through the first step of cultivation and entered the second step. At that time, the Li family stood at the very pinnacle of glory. But after my ancestors entered this place, no descendant of the Li family has ever broken through the first step again. The peak of the late ascendant stage became our limit. It was as though the potential of every member of the Li family was slowly drained away the moment they were born. And even our lifespans began to shrink. Compared to cultivators of the same realm, members of the Li family live only 30% as long. All of this is because of the slave imprint." Li Wen suddenly turned toward the statue. Monstrous hatred erupted within his eyes. Yet that hatred quickly faded, replaced by deep melancholy. His expression twisted in painful struggle. Wang Lin remained calm, silently observing from the side as he pondered everything. Moments later, Li Yuan's body looked as though it had been drenched by rain. His clothes were soaked completely with sweat. It was as if he had aged years within a single instant. His hands formed countless complicated seals, which he pressed between his eyebrows one after another. Each seal contained countless restrictions. As they imprinted themselves upon his forehead, clarity slowly returned to his eyes. Li Yuan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. "When my emotions become unstable," he said bitterly, "it becomes difficult to control the slave imprint. For countless years, this imprint has slowly dragged my Li family into decline. Our clan members died one by one. Our cultivation stagnated at the first step. The glory of our past faded into nothing. Until tens of thousands of years ago. At that time, my Li family produced a genius unlike any before him. His talent far surpassed that of all our ancestors. His comprehension of restrictions was terrifying. If the Li family had not already been branded with the slave imprint, he would have become the greatest cultivator in our clan's history. Although his cultivation was stuck at the peak of the late ascendant stage, his mastery of restrictions was so terrifying that even second-step cultivators would not dare provoke him lightly. In order to break the slave imprint upon the Li family, he left the All-Heaven star system, using his limited lifespan to travel across the stars in search of a solution. In the Alliance star system, he traded his restriction techniques for a scroll from a powerful cultivator. In the Cloud Dust star system, beneath the Wind celestial realm, he traded the remaining wealth of our clan for a compass. Then, before his lifespan reached its end, he returned to the All-Heaven star system and came back to the Li family. At that time, half of the remaining members of the Li clan voluntarily sacrificed themselves. They used their souls to imitate the soul of the Celestial and refine an iron sword. He used that iron sword to gather the souls, then used the compass to condense them, and finally sealed them within the scroll. When that ancestor's lifespan was about to end, the Thunder Celestial realm opened. He brought those 3 treasures along with all the remaining hope of the Li family into this realm. But there was never any news of him again. From that moment onward, the Li family fell into despair. Our decline only worsened. One by one, our clan members died. The slave imprint became a curse that persisted through reincarnation after reincarnation. My Li family could never escape it. To this day, including myself, only 3 members of the Li family remain. Li Yuan's voice trembled with sorrow. Then he suddenly turned around, his expression turning cold. It wasn't until 1,000 years ago that my father accidentally saw the iron sword on a remote cultivation planet. If it had only been that, perhaps it would not have meant anything. Too much time had passed. We had no way of knowing whether it truly belonged to our ancestor. But that sword was forged from the souls of half of our clan. The moment my father saw it, he immediately recognized the anger and resentment of our ancestors within it. Li Yuan extended his right hand. A flash of light appeared. A vortex formed in mid-air. As it rotated, Ge Hong emerged within it, her face filled with terror. Her body was forcibly dragged out of the vortex and thrown before the foot of the statue. The family that possessed that iron sword was the Ji family. Li Yuan's eyes filled with vicious hatred. In the past, when my Li family still possessed its former glory, destroying a clan like the Ge family would have required nothing more than a flick of my finger. But now, my Li family's cultivation is trapped at the peak of the late ascendant stage. Even with our restriction techniques, we cannot defeat the Ji family, who possess 2 second-step cultivators. Several years ago, I infiltrated the Ji family in disguise, and I learned the truth of everything. Li Yen looked up toward the sky with bitterness. The Ji family had known my identity for a long time, yet they said nothing about the past. They simply sent me here to the Thunder Celestial realm with Ge Hong and the 3 treasures, although they never spoke of it. With my intelligence, I could easily guess what happened back then. His gaze became vicious as it fell upon Ge Hong. Today, I came to complete the wish of my ancestor. But before that, I require your blood to appease the tens of thousands of years of despair endured by the ancestors of my Li family. As Li Yuan spoke, his hand shot forward. In an instant, he seized Ge Hong. His hand pressed against her forehead. Her eyes were filled with despair. She opened her mouth as if to speak. But in the end, no words came out. Wang Lin frowned slightly. "Fellow cultivator Li," he said slowly, "the grievances between the Li family and the Ji family have nothing to do with me. Why did you bring me here?" Li Yan turned toward him calmly. "I saw Brother Shu's battle with the illusory Yin cultivator through my restrictions. One of Brother Shu's spells is extremely useful to me. You may rest assured. I will not ask for your help without compensation. When this matter is finished, I will give you the complete 18 Plum restriction, along with my family's annihilation restriction as payment. For now, I ask Brother Shu to remain patient. I must first offer sacrifice to the souls of my family." Li Yen's eyes burned with hatred. Celestial spiritual energy surged violently from his body and poured into Ge Hong like a raging dragon. The woman revealed a bitter smile, yet her eyes were incredibly clear. With great effort, she turned her head and looked at the stone statue. After a single glance, she seemed to understand something. Her lips parted slightly, but before she could speak, her body suddenly exploded into a mist of blood splattering across the stone statue. Her origin soul was instantly absorbed by the statue and vanished. Li Yuan looked down at his hand, silently, confusion flickering across his face. After a long time, he sighed softly. His voice now carried an ancient, solemn tone. "Ancestor, your descendant Li Yuan will complete what you began. If you loved this story, please consider supporting us through the donation link below. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the best and most immersive video. We truly appreciate you being here with us.